Hi, thank you for joining us. This is Робърт Корсини, a very well-known documentalist and film director who is joining us from LA in the United States. Very active recently on the streets against the administration of new President of the United States, Donald Trump. Um, Hi, Robert. Thank you very much for joining us. This is OFFNews, one of the few really free media in Bulgaria. We're watching very carefully what's happening in the United States because it actually it's a micro or big picture of what's going to happen in the world in recent times and in the future. It looks very dangerous. When I'm on duty in our site and I wait until President Trump wakes up and he creates the news. And the news is very messy, it's very controversial, and it's heading in a totally somehow wrong direction. What's happening now in LA on the streets?
Well, I think in LA and across the country, demonstrations, very grassroots organized demonstrations are developing from in every city across the country. The numbers of people are showing up are now surpassing probably what happened during the build up to the Iraq War, where you had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people marching regularly before the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Um, Today, we're seeing numbers in excess of that, I think, around the country. So, they're pushing all they're going. It's a full frontal assault on civil society. I think we're finally admitting now that that's what it is. I think it removes the veneer that has been constructed in this system, in our political system here, that the Democrats, they kind of they try to put this smooth finish around the fascism of the Republicans. And just so it looks like it's, oh, well, we can work with them. But I think now we know the veil is unlifted. Their fascism is a very
You're referring to there. We were hoping
well.
that
I
it's
say I
only
say that
kids.
I say the fascism I refer to that we're confronting is a fascism that has always been at the core of American society. It's kind of a it's a confederacy reborn, where we're seeing the forces that split the country into civil war in the 19th century are still in play. And there are a lot of theories about why that persists. And it's rooted in racism, it's rooted in denialism, it's rooted in denial of genocide. All those kinds of things are what's at the root of all of it. I mean, it's pretty stark,
Unfortunately,
but
it's not
it's
only
true.
in the United States, though.
That's
These
correct.
nationalisms are rising everywhere in Europe too, and it's part of a global process. And I'm still trying to figure out what started it. What do you think? Because one part of this is that Russia and Kremlin are actually funding our nationalists here, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very dangerous. We'll talk about this relationship, Russia, United States of America, in a while, in a second. But what do you think started all this process of
No, that's
democracy turning back to fascism?
I think what really ignited the whole process was 9/11, and I think 9/11 had this cancerous impact in how it triggered a response in the West
Right.
that was very north-south oriented in reaction, and meaning that all of a sudden, all the strains that were going on between people of color and the North and the South were ripped wide open, and all of it kind of all connected back to a series of things, including Palestine, that are they triggered a process, and in that process, it unleashed within this country and in Europe, for that matter, a huge wave of Islamophobia, and that Islamophobia has fed a terrible amount of misunderstanding and fear mongering, getting people motivated by, giving them their worst nightmare. A dark-skinned person with a bomb strapped to them was injected into our mass psyche. And I
Right.
think so much of that reactionary response I mean, the Islamophobia, I've seen it at so many levels, and people I've worked with in the past, companies I worked at. I mean, you just see it. It's just like, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've had a little bit of experience in Palestine and Israel myself, having traveled there several times and filmed and met a lot of people on the ground. Palestinians are like anybody else.
Of course,
And
Freda.
of course, it's so obvious. But I say that, but in the United States, we don't get that on a mass. We have this sense of Islam is like this toxic horror show, and like,
But it's
well,
very weird because United States is its fundamentals are based on pluralism, and it's built by immigrants. It's very weird what's happening now.
yeah, no, it's true. But there has always been this counter. No, not even. It's just this core racist culture in its essence. I mean, in the 20s, the anti-immigration push. I mean, my family's Italian. My family came to the United States. And my grandparents all were Italian and came here as immigrants. And they came in the 20s. Did they have papers? No, not really. They just kind of showed up, and then they got processed in, and it was, again, of course, this country is built by immigrants, and it continues to be that way. I live in Los Angeles. We have here, many will call it occupied Mexico. I mean, what are the names of our cities? It's Los Angeles, it's San Francisco. You go on and on and on. You go, we are in Mexico, and it's like, well, who moved the border? So in that sense, when we have these xenophobes who are at the core of the Republican Party, trying to stir up problems for us. I mean, this city, California, is diverse and successful as it is, and will continue to be precisely because of its diversity. Its diversity is its strength. And this is what happens when I've seen this in my life and studying history a little bit, but unfortunately, places that demonstrate an ability to integrate culture, identity, art, end up being targeted. Sarajevo, another example. Sarajevo was one of these amazing places of cultural diversity, and it became this ridiculous, and has been this battleground of conflict and war. And Jerusalem, same. We could say the same thing about there. I mean, wherever you see people coming together in a way, and it functions, the exterior forces like to manipulate that. And in California, especially, I mean, we rely on labor from Mexico. We have our own economy between here and Mexico all the time. And we have people who share the border. I mean, I have friends who Mexican Americans, and I work with in the entertainment industry, and we talk about how their parents got here, and I remember a friend of mine at a production company. We were talking. Carlos was his name, and I was lamenting on what it has taken for their families to transform themselves, to travel from Mexico to the United States, taking enormous risks for themselves and their families. And my friend Carlos looks at his father as a hero. And so when you juxtapose that to the imageries that this administration is trying to impose on us, their narratives about people from south of the border are so bad. It goes. I mean, this is like I said. This is. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the words anymore to
But where
describe
does that
it.
come from? It's very unnatural. It's natural for the I read and also translate articles about foreigners from different countries, also from Canada. This Canadian actress who was actually stopped at the border and put in jail for 2 weeks and for no reason. I mean, what is this? What's happening? What is this new administration creating? It looks like a very dangerous resemblance of the way Hitler's Germany was thinking about the human race. It's frightening to that. It's how can you even think today in these terms? Who is the social and the political engineer behind all this, you think?
Ooh. uh, yeah, that's an excellent question, but it isn't. You're right, though. I think it is engineered. It is by design. You can feel it. I mean, and I think anyone within the law enforcement the, structures here in the United States, within every police department, every jurisdiction from here to Maine to Florida, every police department has its racists,
Yeah, everywhere
right?
in the world. Yeah, of course.
Everywhere in the world, and there has been is kind of like what I was saying about this veneer that the Democrats have tried to contain, this latent racism um, by laws and accountability and all these things that civil society has constructed to contain that. All right, well, all that is off now, and so all those people, all those sociopaths with guns, are now coming to the surface. Now further enabled because they have a president who's clearly already made it crystal clear since Charlottesville that you guys are. I got your back. We'll be there for you. We will. You could do what you got to do to help me, and I'll make sure you don't do any time in prison. And that's what they've done.
But well, I am wondering because I have lived in the United States and I know who is. I don't want now to sound offensive, but actually there are certain jobs that used to be done by women, then used to be done by foreigners, also from foreigners from Mexico, and I don't. I mean, or Eastern Europeans. And if you that drag the whole workforce of the United States out of the United States. Who is going to do these jobs? I mean,
It's I laugh because of course it makes. I mean,
it,
we've had these conversations and the analysis of the implications of these policies of xenophobia and pushing all the Mexicans back to Mexico uh, kind of attitude. It's like I was saying earlier, the state of California's agriculture relies. We all rely on this kind of
of
give
course,
and take on immigration. I mean, that's what that's and to build the wall, of course, psychologically, physically, that's what they're doing. And I think Trump's been better at building a psychological wall than an actual wall because I think in the ethos of the society, everyone's saying, "Oh, well, you know what? We actually can do this. Okay, yeah, we can separate. We can go back to where America was great. Okay,
what
and
if this
then
America was great and it's going to be great again? Meaning what? When did
I
America
don't
start to
know.
be weak? I mean, America is the biggest, used to be the biggest democracy in the world. This is what's very scary, that in there, in the human nature, there is this will to actually destroy democracy, which threatens the whole world now.
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean, where does it start? Where does it start from?
Because
It
you
never,
know the
maybe it never goes away. It just goes through the cycles of human, of human socialization over time and civilization. Look, these cycles come and go. It's an unfortunate thing, but
that's one theory, and the other one is that maybe liberalism went far too further, and the pendulum um,
the
just
axe in this case.
reacts because yeah, it was a little bit too much maybe.
Well, how?
Although
That's a great. No, I hear that a
you know
lot.
the quotes, quote principles in the Oscars. I'll give a first example that comes to mind, and all those the very hard measurements towards underlying the differences between the minorities and the rest of the world and the people. And like when you underline these differences so much and you actually favor the difference, it stands out instead of the opposite. Instead of everybody taking it normal, when you always underline that, you know, there should be a minority, there should be that percentage of women or black people or gay people or whatever you want. And at certain point, it went too far away, too far, maybe this is a reaction to this.
I myself, I live in California. I don't think it went too far.
No, okay. I'm
I
just
mean,
guessing.
no. I now understand your point. I mean, people
No,
make
because
that argument
if
often.
I was in the Oscars, the jury of the Oscars, I want to award the film that's good, not that's politically correct, you know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that kind of stuff will happen all the time. There's hegemony going on, and who's in control of it. I mean, you could look back. Well, the LGBTQ, you know, story. I hate to call it just a story. I mean, the transformation is actually it's something that has had to happen for a very long time. Um, Everybody has people who are gay in their
Of
family or
course,
lesbian,
if you keep
and
a thing
always
in
have.
a closet, it doesn't
Right.
just disappear, right? It's
So,
there.
but the people are still remain. I mean, that's probably one has been one of the huge uh, tools of division that have been employed in our cultural society by the right to exploit that fear of gay people, and that has been completely taken advantage of. Abortion. I mean, all these fundamentalist Christian policy issues have served to divide in a way, in an
Absolutely.
unprecedented way. Okay, I was talking about this earlier in a meeting with my ACLU group that I'm a part of, American Civil Liberties Union, and we were discussing about how, of course, First Amendment is a huge issue in relation to Gaza, and it became, I guess, the point was, I was that oh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought about Gaza. Um, First
Oh,
Amendment. So
Gaza was outrageous,
speaking the
you know.
truth.
Gaza as the next luxurious holiday destination. It was
Oh, oh
it
no,
was
it's just the whole thing
horrible.
is beyond belief that it could be done this way, and exploited in such a way. And well, my point was that how anti-Semitism and criticism of Israel's genocidal policies could be conflated. I mean, this is how they have divided the Jewish communities of the United States that have always been traditionally very entrenched in the democratic side of governance,
Right.
um, and they separated the money. They basically, the right wing took all the money out and gave it to the fundamentalist Christians and bought their way into a new Zionist, you know, situation in Israel. So how these things connect is, I think, is another thing that we're all realizing within the activist communities. And I'm not a big activist. I'm a little person, but I work with a lot of people in the area where I live, basically. So we probably organize amongst a couple hundred people who are in different organizations throughout this part of Northeast Los Angeles, and that's kind of where I'm at.
It's very brave of you to stand out because it looks like there it's not safe anymore to go out on the streets.
Well,
What
it's
are you risking?
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think right now I don't see that. I mean, I'm not getting out there in the streets like I have in the past. I got other things to do right now. I will at some point again. But I'm spending my time and effort really just trying to organize within organizations to help get this stuff out. And yeah, I think you have to be, I mean, courageous. I don't know, courageous. I mean, I think the Ukrainians are courageous. I mean,
Let's talk a
I
little
think the
bit.
Palestinians are courageous. You know, that's who's really courageous, and we might have to step up at some point. I hope not, but that's the women of Palestine are courageous. And we can go on down the line. But that's where I think
The foreign policy of this administration is very threatening too. What did you think of this publicly somehow set up the meeting between Trump and Zelensky, which was so highly publicized, and it looked more like a mafia movie than
it was
diplomacy?
just, I'm sorry, it was profane. The whole manipulation, exploitation of it. It's consistent with Trump. He's not a man of taste. He's not a man of tact. He's a brutalist. He's a bully, and he's a coward. And these are the things. And now I feel like I'm Robert De Niro, which maybe I'm channeling him right now because I adore Robert De Niro.
Well, we
For
all
every
do.
word he said in his critique of Donald Trump couldn't have been
Robert
better
De Niro
stated.
is leaving the United States, right? Because he
Oh
cannot.
man, he can't do that. He's got to stay. We need him.
But as he said, he cannot stand this anymore, right? But the thing is, well, this meeting between the Trump and Zelensky made a clear point that actually he's flirting with the aggressor Putin. And since this war is going on for 3 years, 3 and more years now in our region, it's very dangerous because if United States of America and Russia, for some absurd reason, get somehow closer, we from the European world will have to enter a new third world war. um, Europe is 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 really afraid of that. That it's happening actually, and we have to defend Europe somehow. And our men will be fighting. I mean, it's coming, and it's totally related to this connection and this relationship. In terms of the foreign policy that this administration follows. NATO, that the United States doesn't want to support and be NATO anymore.
Yeah,
Um, that's very
I would
dangerous.
like to ask. I would like to ask you a question though.
Yes.
Um, what is your thought? Okay, the critique of the relationship from the right, from the conservatives here in the United States, and others, Democrats too. There are plenty of people. Myself, I kind of followed it to a certain extent. But the fact that it is seen, Putin's reaction, Putin's war, Putin's invasion was provoked by the encirclement or the integration of the threat of the integration of Ukraine into NATO that was promised would not happen at the end of the Cold War. What is your sense of that? I mean, you're Eastern European. How do you frame that
I
when people
don't
say that?
I honestly don't see any reasoning in this war. It's we didn't expect Russia. We were laughing years back. We were thinking that when somebody was saying, well, Russia will rise again, Russia will be strong again, Russia will be their imperia, how do you call that in English? They have this imperial thinking of themselves as superior to the whole world, and they'll strike again. And we're laughing because for us, this was in the past. I don't literally, I don't have any idea why this war started and is still continuing because I've done two documentaries with Ukrainian refugees who came to Bulgaria. They're mostly women and kids and older people. And I was very, very respected by their feeling of mission, their reasoning. They said we are fighting for these values. We want to be part of European Union, part of NATO, and this is what we stand for. But they lost everything, you know. You meet people who lost their closest friends, for example, or a parent, or their man, her man is on there. They're risking his life, in the war, but she doesn't cry, she doesn't complain, she doesn't say, maybe we had to be silent, maybe we had to accept what he wanted, and, no, they're very brave. They're totally together in this. Absolutely amazing. So they're fighting for something that we, for example, take for granted. It just happened to us. The Berlin Wall fell down. We just were free one day. We woke up free, and it's of course we spent my life on the streets protesting because we didn't want these same communists to come back to power, and we wanted to be part of European Union and NATO. And yes, but it wasn't a conscious choice the way Ukrainians do it every single day, and they continue to do it. And it's very, very, I cannot answer why did he started it and why does he continue. But the threat here is that he will continue further to other European countries, Eastern European countries.
Right. But does he really have the military power to do
Well, we
that?
hope not. If
Yeah,
if he doesn't play very closely with the United States of America, you know what I'm asking you? That's why I'm asking you, because is it war games or it's reality? Because if you ask any Ukrainian, it's reality for them,
yeah, of course, of
right?
course.
And for us, we're analyzing it, we're watching it. And also, I admire Harvard people. I mean, all the university that stood up. Um, all those things that this administration is doing. Um, what education policies, culture policies, actually doing what happened here years ago, but for different reasons, to actually limit the people who are more intelligent, more educated, who can lead the type of elites that naturally were leading your society, our society, to actually get the money out of these places, to stop them, to what is the, I mean, it's devolution in any sense, devolution.
The evolution, yes. No,
And these are
no.
the rich people in America who think they're actually doing an evolution, right?
I'm
This
sorry, I
Elon
didn't get that.
Musk
They're doing a what?
evolution,
Oh,
this Elon Musk idea that mm, it's evolutionary step.
have you ever known anyone who is a billionaire?
No, I know a millionaire, but not a billionaire, no.
Well, I know someone who's a billionaire,
And
who is a billionaire. He's completely psychotic. So
okay, that explains
completely
it then.
psychotic, self-entitled, abusive, um, funny, smart, uh, but there's a certain sociopathy that comes with the extreme wealth. I was reading about this. I don't know if it was in the Atlantic recently. They're doing an analysis. It was an analysis of the psychology of these kinds of extreme wealth. The Bezoses, all of them. What the certain personality traits are, and of course, it always leads to isolation. There's a sense of complete lack of empathy for other people. And they just lose their humanity. So I think maybe the best battle cry should be no billionaires, because once they reach that level of power and influence, it's like the normal societal balancing
But
uh,
I
is,
understand
is
what
no
you're
longer in
saying.
play.
But since we're here very poor, sit still, here we fight for freedom of media, for little things like this. I was banned here in Bulgaria because I was free-minded and didn't follow the.
You were banned?
Yes, and I'm
Really?
actually still banned. That's why I'm working online.
No
I
way.
my
Oh,
talk show on the evening talk show of Bulgarian national
yes.
television, and I was
Oh yeah,
producing
yeah. No, no. I
it
saw
on.
that. Right.
Yes.
So
But the
what was your crime?
that intellectuals, artists, actors, free thinkers cannot be controlled, and they talk against the government at any point without any problem. I mean, free media is another point. Another part of Trump's administration is that what part of their actions against free media, which is also very. I've worked for CBS for years, so I remember this was during the Kosovo War that, of course, no media is totally, completely free. But the sense of freedom I had there, I think I never had here anymore later. So what's happening with the media in the States now?
Well,
At least it's structured. You know who belongs to who, which is
well, I think the good thing that has happened with Donald Trump is that he has revealed the true nature of everything.
right. That
You
happened with
know,
Putin too here.
exactly. It's like now it's like everything I've ever. I mean, I've worked, for networks and not and independent. I'm pretty much completely independent. Perhaps for similar reasons as you. Um, but there was a very hard. It was very hard to find a place for it for a clear-eyed framing of the truth. And that anyway, that's overall what it's revealed. How quickly all the media just folded. The newspapers but it was kind of like astonishing to see it. And then I was like, all those years thinking about it and the criticisms of media for its lack of honest reporting, not telling the truth about fascists, because again, part of that, because they are their own people, right? So you couldn't criticize these corporate entities that were so big effectively, and so as a result of that, it kept building into this situation where now we see everyone just saying, "Oh well, okay, I guess we're okay with fascism. Then we'll just bend the knee and show up and just, yes sir, okay, we'll remove our pesky correspondence that annoy you, and we'll make changes, and we'll pay you money." CBS paying money for that interview was just the most egregious thing ever. If you recall the story, um, again, I'm making an assumption here. It was CBS was sued by Donald Trump because of how they edited Kamala Harris's interview. I'm not sure if you followed this story, right?
No, but I can believe it. Yes.
In the end, of course, it's obviously that you work in television, you know how editing works, and you edit for time, and the Trump contention was they edited it to make her look good, right?
Well, also
Well, which
me
of
working
course,
in television, I can tell you that you can do that. You
yes,
can
you can
indeed do
do
that.
that.
Yes,
That
you
that
can.
is that is that is true. But
But
to the point where they were suing CBS for for
for
for
editing, that's
for
free
under
speech.
some election law issue, right? For doing what they do normally, right?
That's what their
And,
job is, right?
and so CBS finally said, of course, if they took it to court in any normal circumstance, there would be no issue. They would have, these are preposterous allegations.
Absolutely.
But they ended up paying them paying Trump millions of dollars in damages. CBS wrote them a check.
I
So
just
sorry,
to
so
say that this,
sorry how we edited Kamala's interview. Sorry, Donald. It's like, you got to be kidding.
amazing. That's horrible.
Yeah,
Just to say that if the Zoom meeting is over now, I'll immediately start a new one.
sure. Is
Uh,
it finishing now?
Speaking of Kamala Harris, are the Democrats preparing for new elections soon, and who is going to be their candidate?
Well, certainly they're preparing. Who's the next candidate? I don't know. That's a that's interesting. I don't have an answer.
Because it's very important, right?
It's critical. I mean, I want someone. I want a clear eyed, sober person. I want someone who. I mean, I tend to like Mark Kelly.
So I'll ask this question again.
Sure.
Speaking of Kamala Harris, who do you think the next Democrats candidate will be?
Well, I don't think Harris will run again. Um, I think that's not going to work. It might be someone like Mark Kelly, who is a senator from Arizona. Mark Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Um, these guys are good, and they know how to speak to an audience in a really strong way. Um, again, I'm by not a militarist in any way, but at the same time, someone who has a sense of it the way Mark Kelly would, because of having been his career as an astronaut and part of I think is really important right now. I think we have to make sure that our armed forces have a sense of rationality amongst them. And right now, I'm not so sure because Trump has replaced all the leadership of the American military with people that are more to his liking, who are more subservient to him. This concerns me. So with a new candidate, a new president as a Democrat then would have to go reset the military, right? So it's got to be someone who can do that. And as much as I really appreciate and supported Kamala Harris, she's not the one who's going to be able to do it because we have to look at the people who are going to be able to do it, not in a more of a idealized way. I think again, that's a whole nother story.
But do you feel like in the air there in the United States that people who used to support Donald Trump for some reasons are actually now not with him anymore? Like I would
uh,
expect that.
I would. I don't think so. I think, and I was just reading this today. I forget where it was, but it was really interesting. It was talking about how the people on the left here in this country have to just understand one thing, and that is Trump's popularity within his supporters has not changed one bit in 10 years. He's still at that like 47% level, right? And that hasn't changed. So the only thing that can change is us, and which means we need to step up and be more effective. We need to organize in a way that is smarter, in a way that you know um, turns people out and not away. Is really really important to be really as inclusive as we say we have been. Um, in some ways, the idea of inclusivity is a myth because we have divisions here in this country despite all these efforts. They still keep, even amongst progressive Democrats, you got the black ones and then you got the white ones, right? And then and we've just seen this in the fires post, which is right in our neighborhood here, what happened in Pasadena, where
Yeah.
I went to a meeting the other day about rebuilding in Altadena, which is a predominantly African American community. Um, but it is more mixed now than before. But I went to this town hall meeting, and it was really engaging, and great speakers. And I was one of maybe four white people in a room of 300 people in Los Angeles, 5 minutes from the Rose Bowl, right? So in Altadena, okay, yes, this is sponsored by it was a black talk show, black radio station, black owned radio station. A famous journalist owns it, but still, that there wasn't enough interest from other people. Fire doesn't discriminate.
No,
So
I
anyway,
wanted
I
to
just
ask
think,
you how.
guys, my point was not to digress, but my point was about the mythology of inclusivity. It's been a huge work in progress, and what's horrible is that now we're going to go backwards, and
Yeah,
that's
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 for
what's
sure.
tragic.
I wanted to ask you how LA does recover after these fires and a whole tragedy there.
I don't know. It's a tale of two tragedies. You got the poor people who got hit, and then you got the rich people who got hit.
Right.
And those stark economics are opened wide. We see the contradictions of it. Pasadena, Altadena, the part of the area that burned severely, 6,000 or so
Right.
structures. It had been, prior to the fires, the highest concentration of African American transgenerational wealth in the country, meaning that for over a century, they owned their own homes and they kept them in their families all that time. And so, and just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes that were that way. So the family assets were in the home. So when we look at a 75-year-old home that burns to the ground, more than likely in some of these communities, not more than likely, often they were underinsured, because people didn't necessarily have the capital. They want to save their money, whatever, or not insured at all. And so we're looking at lots of people who lost the value of their home. Everything just went away. And then you have, of course, the insurance crisis here in California. And then now the new threat of FEMA. FEMA has been an entity from the federal government here that would be, for example, if someone loses their home, burns to the ground, their insurance pays, 60 cents on the dollar to rebuild it. FEMA would often come in with grant money that would allow people to rebuild their homes, which is exactly the kind of role you want the federal government to play in these kinds of situations, right?
Yeah.
But now Trump, it wants to dismantle all of that. So, and again, it's not just California. It could be anywhere. It could be Florida. It could be New Hampshire.
But
Wherever
what's
there's
happening to those homeless people then?
well, they're still here. There's just more of them. You have literally now people whose houses burned down and they're living on their contaminated lots in trailers.
Ay, 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 ay.
Right? So that's happening, and the homeless crisis here persists. And we've just decided that we don't no longer want to fund there was a movement to financially strengthen the homeless support structures in the city, and it's a super complicated situation, and there's no one cause for the phenomenon. And it requires a lot of money to do it, one way or the other. You can't get around it. And there's always this sense here that when you help poor people, the poor people are going to take advantage of it, which can be true. But at the same time, where is it not true? You help rich people, they take advantage of
Absolutely.
it. Right. And in fact, more so, because they can get away with it easier. So there's now a new movement because of Trump and all that to dismantle, the funding apparati that were in place to really fundamentally change how the city deals with the crisis, and that included, investment monies for acquisition of properties for low-income housing, construction that would be subsidized housing, all that kind of stuff was built into it. This stuff takes years and years to roll out. It's just not about picking
It's a
people up off the
tragedy, though.
street.
Yeah.
It's a total tragedy, but it's been here, since I've been an adult since the 80s, and it's all about a certain mentality and ideology toward and fear of poor people. And
And
that and everyone wants to put, not in my backyard, don't want to see, I deal with that here all the time. I live in a decent area, but right next to an area that's not so decent, and then right next to that we have the arroyo that goes to Pasadena that's full of homeless people. So then people over on where I live are complaining about they're building these little tiny houses, they call them. The city has been building these kind of I don't want to call them they're like these little I don't want to call them camps, but they're these developments, for emergency housing and they would be, these small trailer-like, structures, and they're, relatively well designed, and people freak out. They go, well, I don't want to see that stuff along the freeway. Well, where do you want to see it then? Where do you want it? Well, I don't want to see it in my yard. Well, no, you want to see it there. Where do you want it? Everyone, people have to understand they have to make these kinds of accommodations and concessions, and have more realistic expectations about how we deal with inequity. And America's been really bad about dealing with inequity, and it's
Well,
continuing.
America is not really the example of a social country. No.
Not at all. Socialism for the rich, yes,
No,
yes.
not socialism, but
Oh, okay.
social system that supports the poor and the sick and the vulnerable, right?
No, no, it's been terrible for as long as I've lived.
What really we didn't understand that well back then. You guys were protesting against AI coming, and now I went to a course which was organized by here the Union of Free Journalists, so to say, Association of European Journalists, and also funded, actually, maybe this is the last thing that will be funded by America for Bulgaria, because it's the American foundation that's used to support free media. I hope they continue, but I don't know. Well, there was this AI course, and it was amazing and very scary at the same time, because it showed us how, if we want, we can now shoot movies, commercials, packages, edit, create, recreate. We don't even use a camera anymore. People on the set. We don't need to go to locations anymore. We don't need to write scripts. We don't need to think with our own brain. AI will do it for us. So in a way, it's very helpful in some tasks. It makes it easier, faster for you and stuff. For example, this interview, it will take it off and write it and transcribe it for seconds. Otherwise, it will take me hours. But on the other hand, what's coming next? You predicted it in LA with those protests. What's coming?
It's funny. It's kind of like the devaluation of human knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
I've thought about this. I mean, I speak French. I'm pretty good at Italian. I'm pretty good in Spanish, and I pride myself on being able to speak these languages, right? And I've been there since my 20s, so it's part integrated into my who I am. And my daughter is half Belgian, and we speak French, and my grand, it's all, I'm part of an Italian group here. We speak Italian, so it's so, again, the process of understanding another culture and identity is not something that should be as easy as typing it into the phone and tell me how to say this. Any idiot can do that. But
Right.
the process of human empathy, which is really the lack of human empathy, is at the core of all these issues we're facing right now, and our inability to be human, and prevented, and not only our own personal self-imposed inability, it's imposed on us as well. The society is making us, to dehumanize and to break down a sense of empathy. And when empathy breaks, that's always the first step to war and genocide. So that we're globally dealing with a lack of empathy for one another, and that's kind of
Exactly.
crazy it could happen on a global scale in this manner in such a short period of time.
It's
But
very strange that last week here was the same conference, was the senior war correspondent of CNN, and I made an interview with her, and she said the same thing, that actually the biggest problem now is the lack of empathy.
yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, Israel, Palestine, Gaza. I mean, it's just, and it's just and it's prideful ignorance, and it's kind of like, you can't. The Gaza thing makes me crazy. I know so many people there, both sides, you know, and to see this happen in this manner, that everyone since 2014 they're organizing their asses off to try and prevent what is happening now from happening. So many people were part of that movement in those years, and it's just and the ignorance that where you can't talk about the history. You can't. You have to start at October 7th. God forbid if you were to talk about the broader issues for the past 75 years. What do you mean you can't let me talk about that? What do you mean that's anti-Semitic if I say that? You've got to
Mhm.
be kidding. But I've seen this happening for years. I mean, I worked on an anti-Semitism project in 2017. Traveled all over the country. I went to Charlottesville, all over. I went to Berlin. I went to Israel, Palestine. Interviewed all these people about anti-Semitism. And at the time, they're saying, "Yeah, well, it looks like it's not 1938 right now, but it sure looks like 1934." But it was still this really weird thing about criticism of Israel conflated with criticism of the occupation. One you couldn't criticize the occupation
Yeah,
because that would mean you're anti-Semitic, and that's absurd, and it's sick, and it's been going on for a
absolutely.
very long time, and that's all about breaking down of empathy. The first time I went to Israel, it was in 2017, and I always remember the day I got to this area near Gilo, which is Gush Etzion area of the occupied territories outside of Jerusalem. And where I was staying, long story short, had someone walk me across the barrier to the Palestine side, and and then one time when I got to the side of to the other side of the wall. One side of the wall is completely pristine, clean. The big, beautiful wall that Donald Trump probably is thinking in his mind how beautiful a wall could be, right? And then you get to the other side, and of course, it's like it's festooned with an array of graffiti and messaging about of another story. And I always remember when I got to the other side of that, it just grabbed me around the throat. And I'm like, this is fundamentally wrong how this is working. I actually have a, if you, can I share? Can
Yes.
you let me share? I'll share a picture with you.
Do I have to let you?
Yeah, I think you have to go into, well, maybe you'll just let me. Hold on. No, here, I'm going to send a request.
Allow. I allowed
Okay.
you.
Okay. Let's see if I can find it now. That would be a miracle. Let's see. Um, I got so many things on my screens, documents.
One of the most vivid images from my childhood was the Berlin Wall, and when it
I'm
fell
sure.
down, with all those drawings, as you were talking about walls. I mean,
Yeah, so it's I'll filter around and find it here in a second, but let me see if I can go over here. Um, Folder for you. Oh man, there they are.
what are you working on right now?
I'm working on a feature documentary about an East LA rock and roll band called Los Lobos. They're a famous musical act right out of the communities of East LA and became a kind of global music sensation.
Great.
Um, so I've been working on that for a while. I'm kind of want to show me. Let's see. I want to go to my desktop. Why won't it go to my desktop? Preview messaging.
Okay, I see it now. Yes.
You see that? Okay.
Yes.
Well, this was the moment when I actually crossed to the other side of the wall, right? And
Right.
this was on the Hebron Road that between uh, it's between Gilo and Bethlehem on the road to Hebron. And so it is just like a, and again, the opposite side of the wall is a completely different situation. Yeah, it's just still to this day completely emotional for me when I think about it. Did I just lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Here's an image also that I thought was important. Uh, because this image has haunted me ever since I shot it.
Oops. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Ah, yes, 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 yes.
So this image was on the wall, and it was just like, I mean, it said it's so prophetic, and I didn't quite realize it at the time, but now when I think about it, it just what it's saying, the shame, the betrayal of freedom and liberty that has been bestowed upon the Palestinian people. Embodied in this image here, of course, of the Statue of Liberty holding, the iconic image of the forgotten Palestinian child. I forget I think there's a name. I forget what it is. In any case, it's this to me was always, again, it stays with me. So I have a project there about my time in Palestine and Israel that I want to someday finish. um, but as all documenters, you never know what the end of the story is
Yeah.
until you
I've been
find.
working in documentaries lately, and yes, yeah, yeah, that's part of it.
I've got hard drives of projects around me that it's kind of crazy. Um,
So,
so
yeah, well, my last question will be,
sure.
thank you very much for this profound and very interesting interview. And my last question will be, in your terms, in your opinion, what a success story will be for you who are on the streets in LA protesting against Donald Trump and his administration? What is the next success you're hoping to
Well,
achieve?
I think the success is in the process, and I think that, and what I mean by that is that um, the outcome is important. Of course, we want it to go our direction, but I think we become successful when we recognize that there are a lot of people, like-minded people, who are out there who are willing to commit to a process that it's not going to make you any money. It's not going to make you famous. It's probably going to cost you money, cost you time, cost you all that, cost you your dignity times. But at the same time, I think the sense that there are other people who are willing to go to the next step, that's important, and that's invaluable. And the more that happens, that's all stuff we can control, we can have an influence on. And I think that's where the success of the future is, and that goes for around the world. So it doesn't.
I hope you can, because we all depend on you now.
Yeah,
I think we never did before. It's so much.
yeah.
So, starting from freedom of media and ending with a third world war at the door, it's a very dangerous moment in human history. And we do rely on you in any possible sense. So keep
Well, we
going.
all rely on each other, I think. I mean, we've all. I mean, I've always, had an affinity with the Europeans and sensibilities, and I think that has always informed. I mean, I have family in Belgium, so and in Italy, so I'm very European in my thinking about a lot of things, and I think always knowing that we had those allies over there was important. And to think that that would be disrupted makes me really angry.
I hope we can also watch one of your movies somehow.
Sure, no, I'll send you a couple things of
Can
things.
you?
Absolutely. I'll
Thank you
send you
so
some of my
much.
things from Jerusalem. And of course, anytime.
We'll be in touch, and thank you so much for this.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
I'll send you the interview when it's ready, and
Okay.
keep keep on the good
Keep up
keep
the good
on
fight.
going. Keep on going, dear Robert. This was Robert Korssini from LA, United States of America. I'm Искра Ангелова. Thank you for watching us.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you again. Take care.
You too.